Welcome to the web series Exploring 9/11, The World Before and After, a production of the National September 11th Memorial and Museum. I'm Clifford Chanin, Senior Program Advisor at the museum. My guests today are both from the West Point Combating Terrorism Center. Jarret Brachman is the Director of Research at the center. He earned his PhD from the University of Delaware and served as a fellow with the CIA before coming to West Point. Also with us today is Bill Braniff, the Director of External Education at the Combating Terrorism Center. Bill is a 1999 graduate of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. After 5 years of service as an officer in the Army, he attended the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies and received a master's degree in international relations. I guess the place to start, really, is to talk a little bit about the Combating Terrorism Center at West Point. It's an institution that was created only several years ago in the aftermath of 9/11 as a means of better understanding what these movements are that led to 9/11 and who's behind them and what they actually think. So perhaps as a place to start, we can talk a little bit about this center and its mission.
Sure. The Combating Terrorism Center has a threefold mission. It was founded in the wake of 9/11 to educate cadets on the nature of the terrorist threat. We had to help increase the strategic level of understanding among our soldiers. So, when they get out in the field, they're not simply looking at this as a tactical or an operational battle. They have the chance to make big differences and big mistakes, and unless they understand that strategic element, they would be ill-equipped. So the center was provided originally for that mission. We've expanded really to an education and a policy outreach mission. So we conduct aggressive research projects on who Al-Qaeda is, on what their aims are. We've expanded to radical other Islamic groups, and we've tried to help policymakers better understand the nature of the threat that they're facing.
One of the interesting things about the center, as I understand it, is that it is privately funded and sort of an independent center within the context of West Point. Can you tell us a little bit about how that evolved and how it's structured?
Sure. I think one of our greatest strengths is that we're an academic center. We're housed in the Social Sciences Department of West Point. And so we go to great lengths to protect our academic objectivity. We're not a mouthpiece for any government organization. And as such, we require private funding. We pursue research projects for various audiences, both within the government and outside of the government on occasion. That allows us to pursue topics that we think are relevant in collaboration with outside donors. And so the center is actually able to tap into the greater academic community in the United States that isn't necessarily lining up to work for organizations like the CIA and the Department of Defense, the Pentagon. We're also able to act as a trusted vendor to those same audiences, the DoD, the CIA, the FBI, other audiences within the government who trust us because of the fact that we're housed at West Point.
I think it's important to add that most of the researchers, if not all of them there, are actually civilian academic researchers, and the work is really quite rigorous in its analysis of the different ideologies and movements that sort of coalesce around Al-Qaeda.
Yeah, what we found is that there's a large cadre of thinkers, experts, and scholars in this country and around the world who want to get involved, but for whatever reason, be it professional or personal, they don't feel as if they're able to find avenues to participate in this fight. And so what we've found over the past few years is that we can provide these individuals with new ways to contribute their expertise on the intellectual side to better understanding these threats.
One of the interesting phenomena is that in a pre-9/11 world, this was an extremely obscure subject that while there were academic specialists paying attention to it, it was really off the radar screen of the public and the mass media. Obviously, on 9/11, you have this vast need to understand better and to try to figure out what's going on here. But it seems to me there's a disconnect nonetheless between moving from a very small, obscure, if I can say, academic subject into this major policy area where momentous decisions are taken based on interpretation, really, and oftentimes conflicting interpretation of what the meanings of these movements are and what they're really about. How have you, I guess I'm looking for a little bit of sense of you know, the bumps in the road, or what some of the issues have been in managing that transition from obscurity to this vast public interest.
I think that the community in general, especially the government community, really struggles with things as simple as terminology, definitions of the movement. How do we want to frame this debate? How do we have this debate, which is admittedly on a subject which makes a lot of people uncomfortable, various constituencies within the United States uncomfortable? How do we have this debate rigorously and in a way that is productive and effective, as opposed to causes rifts within the domestic community with the United States and among policymakers?
And I think as a nation we were thrust into a fight that we were not prepared intellectually for. We didn't understand the basic concepts, the language. And so it's taken us some time, I think, as a nation, as a government, to spin up, to understand who it is we're fighting, who it is we're not fighting, what the terms of the struggle are, what the rules of this fight are. And so as we and others have been engaged in helping to illuminate the battlefield, you know, we're seeing how complicated and how complex of a task it is.